The dust cloud rose behind her like a shroud of defeat, and when Martha Calloway rode into Silver Creek, Montana territory on that scorching August afternoon in 1878, she had $2 pressed into her palm, a dead husband 6 months in the ground, and nowhere left to run. Her horse, a scraggly mare named Bess that had seen better days, limped slightly as they made their way down the main street. Martha's dress, once a respectable gray cotton, was now faded and stained with the grime of 3 weeks on the trail. Her dark blonde hair hung in a braid down her back, and though she was only 24 years old, the hardship of recent months had carved worry lines around her green eyes. She had left Kansas with $15 after selling everything she owned. The journey west had cost her nearly everything. Silver Creek was larger than she had expected, with wooden storefronts lining both sides of a wide dirt street. A hotel, a general store, a saloon, a bank, and various other establishments suggested a thriving mining town. Men in dusty work clothes moved along the wooden sidewalks, and a stagecoach stood outside the hotel, its driver watering the horses. Martha's stomach clenched with hunger. She had eaten only hardtack and wild berries for the past 4 days. She pulled Bess to a stop outside the general store and slid from the saddle, her legs nearly buckling. Inside, she could buy maybe a pound of beans and a little cornmeal with her $2. But then what? She needed work, and she needed it today. "You look like you have been riding through hell itself, miss." Martha turned sharply. A man stood beside a hitching post, one boot propped against the wood, his thumbs hooked in his belt. He was tall and lean, with sun-bronzed skin and dark brown hair that curled slightly at his collar. His blue eyes held curiosity rather than the predatory gleam she had learned to recognize in men. He wore working clothes, dusty chaps over denim trousers, a faded blue shirt, and a worn leather vest. A gun belt sat on his hips, but the holster looked more functional than threatening. He appeared to be in his late 20s, maybe 30 at most. "I have been riding a long way," Martha said, her voice hoarse from thirst and disuse. "I can see that." He straightened and walked closer, his gaze moving to her horse. "Your mare is favoring her left front leg. I know." Martha felt defensive heat rise in her chest. "I have been careful with her, but the terrain has been rough." "I did not mean it as criticism." His voice was gentle. "Name is Cole Brennan. I run a ranch about 5 miles north of town. I came in for supplies." He studied her for a moment. "You looking for work?" Martha's heart lurched. "Yes, I can cook, clean, mend. I worked on a farm with my husband before he passed. I know about livestock and horses. I can work hard." Cole nodded slowly. "I believe you. I lost my housekeeper 2 weeks back. She married one of my ranch hands and they moved to California to start their own place. I have been eating beans out of a can and my house looks like a tornado hit it." He paused. "I can offer you room and board plus $20 a month to start. You would have your own quarters in the main house, separate from where I sleep. Everything respectable. $20. Martha's knees felt weak. It was more than she had dared hope for. "When would I start?" "Soon as you are ready. I need to finish getting supplies, then we can head out." Cole glanced at her horse again. "Tell you what. Since you are starting today, I will give you your first month's wages doubled, $40 to help you get on your feet. You can buy whatever you need here in town, get your horse looked at by the smithy, and we will head out before sundown." Martha stared at him. $40. The sum seemed impossible. "Why would you do that?" "Because you look like you have had a rough time, and I remember what it is like to be down to nothing." Cole's expression was sincere. "I built my ranch from scratch after the war. People helped me when I needed it. I figure I can do the same." Tears pricked at Martha's eyes, but she blinked them back fiercely. She had cried enough over the past 6 months. "I will work hard for you, Mr. Brennan. You will not regret this. Call me Cole." He smiled, and the expression transformed his serious face, creating crinkles at the corners of his eyes. "And I have a feeling I will not regret it at all. Come on, let us get you sorted out." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of practical activity. Cole took her to the general store where he introduced her to the owner, a plump woman named Mrs. Henderson, who clucked sympathetically over Martha's thin frame and helped her select supplies. With the $40 Cole pressed into her hand, Martha bought 2 serviceable work dresses, undergarments, sturdy boots, a warm coat for the coming winter, and basic toiletries. Mrs. Henderson threw in a hand mirror and a cake of lavender soap as gifts. "You take care of yourself, dear," the older woman said, patting Martha's hand. "Cole Brennan is a good man, one of the best around here. You will be safe with him." After the general store, Cole took her to the livery where a grizzled smithy named Tom examined Bess carefully. "She has got a stone bruise, but nothing serious. I will pack her hoof and she needs rest for a few days. I can board her here if you like, or you can take her out to the Brennan place and let her recover there." "I will take her with us," Martha said. She could not bear to leave Bess behind, even temporarily. The mare was the last connection to her old life. "I have got a spare horse she can ride," Cole said. "We can pony your mare alongside." As they prepared to leave town, Martha found herself studying Cole from beneath her lashes. He moved with easy confidence, greeting people on the street by name, stopping to help an elderly man carry a heavy sack of flour. He had paid for Bess's treatment without being asked, and when Martha tried to repay him, he waved her off. "Consider it part of getting you settled," he said. They rode out of Silver Creek as the sun began its descent toward the western mountains. Cole kept his horse, a sturdy bay gelding named Ranger, at an easy walk so Martha's borrowed mount, a gentle mare called Daisy, could keep pace while Bess trailed behind on a lead rope. The land around them was beautiful in a stark way, rolling grassland dotted with sagebrush and wildflowers, with mountains rising blue and purple in the distance. "How long have you had your ranch?" Martha asked, breaking the comfortable silence. "8 years now. I came out here in 1870, after drifting for a few years following the war. Worked as a ranch hand for a couple years, saved every penny and bought my first section of land in 1872. Built it up from there." Pride colored his voice. "I have got 300 acres now, about 80 head of cattle, 24 horses, and I employ 4 ranch hands full-time. It is not the biggest operation, but it is mine." "That is impressive," Martha said honestly. "Building something from nothing takes determination. What about you?" Cole asked. "You do not have to talk about it if you do not want, but I am curious what brought you all the way out here." Martha took a breath, surprised to find that talking about it did not hurt quite as much as it had even a week ago. "I was married to John Calloway for 3 years. We had a small farm in Kansas near Dodge City. He was a good man, hardworking. But last February there was an accident. He was trying to free a calf that had gotten stuck in a ravine and he fell, broke his neck. He died instantly." "I am sorry," Cole said quietly. "His family never approved of me. I was an orphan, raised in a church home, and they thought he could have done better. After he died, they took the farm. Legally it was his and it went to his brother. They gave me 2 weeks to leave." The bitterness in her voice surprised her. "I sold what few things I had and I decided to come west. I had heard there were opportunities in the mining territories, towns that needed workers. I thought maybe I could find a place to start over." "Well, you have found one." Cole's voice was firm. "My ranch is not fancy, but it is a good place. The hands are decent men. You will have your privacy and your safety. I give you my word on that." Martha looked at him, at the sincerity in his blue eyes, and felt something loosen in her chest. For the first time in months, she felt a small spark of hope. The Brennan Ranch appeared as they crested a rise just as the sun touched the mountains. The main house was a sturdy log structure with a wide porch, larger than Martha had expected. A barn stood nearby, along with a bunkhouse, several corrals, and various outbuildings. Cattle grazed in the distance, and she could see horses in one of the nearer pastures. Smoke rose from the bunkhouse chimney. "It is beautiful," Martha said, meaning it. Cole smiled. "It is home. Come on, let me show you around." He introduced her to the ranch hands who had gathered near the barn at the sound of their arrival. There was Pete, a weathered man in his 50s who served as foreman, and 3 younger men. Red, so named for his shock of carrot-colored hair, a stocky fellow named Dutch, and a quiet Mexican man named Miguel. They greeted Martha with respectful nods and welcomed her politely. "Miss Calloway will be keeping house for us," Cole explained. "I expect you all to treat her with respect." "Yes, boss," they chorused, and Martha saw nothing but friendly curiosity in their faces. Cole showed her to her room, which occupied the back corner of the main house. It was simple but clean, with a bed, a dresser, a washstand, and a window that looked out toward the mountains. A door connected it to the main part of the house, and Cole showed her how it locked from her side. "I sleep upstairs," he said, gesturing to a staircase in the main room. "There are 2 bedrooms up there, though I only use one. Down here is the kitchen, the main room, and your quarters. There is a root cellar out back and a smokehouse. The hands eat in the bunkhouse mostly, but I take my meals here. I am hoping you might cook for me, though I do not expect anything fancy." "I am a good cook," Martha assured him, "or I used to be when I had a proper kitchen." "Then you will have one now." Cole's smile was warm. "Why do not you rest and settle in?" "I need to see to some things with Pete, but I will be back in an hour or so. There is coffee on the stove and some bread in the kitchen if you are hungry." After he left, Martha stood in her new room, almost afraid to believe it was real. She unpacked her few belongings, hanging her new dresses in the small wardrobe and placing her toiletries on the washstand. Then she ventured into the kitchen. Cole had not exaggerated about the state of his house. Dirty dishes were stacked in the basin, the floor needed sweeping, and dust covered most surfaces. But the kitchen itself was well equipped, with a good cast-iron stove, plenty of pots and pans, and a large work table. Martha found the bread Cole had mentioned, along with some cheese and preserves. She ate standing at the counter, too hungry to wait, and then she set to work. By the time Cole returned, she had washed all the dishes, swept the floors, and started water boiling for a proper meal. She had found potatoes, onions, and salt pork in the root cellar, and she was making a thick stew. Cole stopped in the doorway, surprise evident on his face. "You did not have to start right away. I meant for you to rest." "I have been resting on the trail for 3 weeks," Martha said, stirring the pot. "It feels good to do something useful." And it did. The familiar rhythm of cooking, of making a home, soothed something raw inside her. They ate at the kitchen table as darkness fell outside. Cole lit lamps, and the warm glow filled the room. The stew was simple but hearty, and Cole ate 3 bowls of it. "Best meal I have had in months," he said, sitting back with a satisfied sigh. "You are not exaggerating about your cooking." "Wait until I have time to make bread," Martha said, feeling pleased. "And I saw you have chickens. Fresh eggs will make a difference." They talked as they ate, easy conversation that felt natural. Cole told her about the ranch, about his plans to expand the herd, about the challenges of the upcoming winter. Martha found herself telling him about her childhood in the orphanage, about the nuns who had taught her to read and cook, about meeting John at a church social. "He was kind," she said, surprised to find herself talking so openly. "That was what I loved about him first. He was just genuinely kind to everyone. I thought I was lucky to find someone like that who wanted to marry me." "He was the lucky one," Cole said, and there was something in his voice that made Martha's heart skip. She looked at him across the table, at his honest face in the lamplight, and felt a flutter of something she had not felt in a very long time. She pushed it away quickly. It was too soon, too complicated. She was here to work, nothing more. But as the weeks passed, Martha found it increasingly difficult to ignore the growing warmth between them. She fell into a rhythm at the ranch, waking early to make breakfast, spending her days cooking, cleaning, mending, and managing the household. Cole treated her with unfailing respect and courtesy, but there were moments when their eyes would meet across the table, or their hands would brush as he handed her something, and the air would seem to crackle with unspoken tension. She learned his habits and preferences. He liked his coffee strong and black, took 2 sugars in his tea, preferred his eggs scrambled rather than fried. He was an early riser, often up before dawn to work with the horses. He was patient with the animals and with his men, but he demanded excellence and hard work. He was fair in his dealings and generous with those in need. More than once, she saw him pay a ranch hand extra to help a family member or extend credit at the general store for someone fallen on hard times. "You have a good heart," she told him one evening in late September as they sat on the porch after supper, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. Cole shrugged, looking uncomfortable with the praise. "I just do what seems right. Not everyone does." Martha thought of her late husband's family, of their coldness and cruelty. "Trust me on that." He looked at her, his blue eyes serious. "Martha, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you happy here?" The question surprised her. "Yes," she said, and realized it was true. "I am happier than I have been in a long time. Why do you ask?" "Because I worry sometimes that you are lonely. You work so hard and you are always here alone when I am out on the range." He hesitated. "I thought maybe you might want to go into town more, meet some of the other women, make friends." Martha considered this. She had been into Silver Creek a few times with Cole to buy supplies, and Mrs. Henderson had been friendly, as had several other townswomen. But the truth was, she had not felt lonely. "I am fine," she said. "I like the quiet, and I am not alone. I have you." The words hung in the air between them. Cole's gaze intensified, and Martha felt heat rise in her cheeks. She had not meant it to sound quite so intimate. "I am glad," Cole said softly. "I like having you here, Martha, more than I probably should." Her heart hammered in her chest. "What do you mean?" He stood abruptly, pacing to the edge of the porch. "I hired you to keep house, and I meant to keep things professional, respectable. But the truth is, I look forward to coming home every day because I know you will be here. I find excuses to stay in the house instead of working because I want to be near you. And when I see you smiling or hear you singing while you work, it makes me happier than anything has in years." Martha rose slowly, her legs trembling. "Cole," he turned to face her. "I know it has not been long. I know you are still grieving your husband, and I know I should keep my feelings to myself. But I cannot help it, Martha. I am falling in love with you." The words struck her like a physical blow, not because they were unwelcome, but because they articulated everything she had been trying to deny in herself. She crossed the porch to stand in front of him, looking up into his face. "I love John," she said quietly. "He was good to me and I mourned him. But the truth is, we married because it seemed like the practical thing to do, two lonely people who could help each other. It was a good marriage, but it was not a passionate one." She took a breath. "What I feel when I am with you is different. It scares me because it is so much stronger." "Martha." Cole reached out, his hand cupping her cheek. "Are you saying—" "I am saying that I feel the same way." The admission left her in a rush. "I tried not to. I told myself it was too soon, that I should not feel this way. But when you smile at me, my heart races. When you are gone all day, I miss you. And when we sit together in the evenings, I feel more content than I have ever felt in my life." Cole's other hand came up to frame her face, and he looked at her with such intensity that Martha felt breathless. "Can I kiss you?" "Yes," she whispered. He lowered his head slowly, giving her time to change her mind, but Martha rose on her toes to meet him. His lips touched hers, gentle at first, tentative. Then she sighed and leaned into him, and the kiss deepened. His arms came around her, pulling her close, and Martha felt as though she were falling and flying at the same time. The kiss was nothing like the chaste pecks she had exchanged with John. This was fire and need and a promise of something more. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cole rested his forehead against hers. "Lord, Martha, you have turned my world upside down." "Good," she said, surprising herself with her boldness, "because you have done the same to mine." They stood there on the porch, wrapped in each other's arms as the stars began to appear overhead. Finally, Cole pulled back, though he kept her hands clasped in his. "I want to do this right," he said. "Court you properly. I do not want anyone thinking I took advantage of you or that there was anything improper. Cole, we are two adults. We do not need to worry about what people think." I do, though. His expression was earnest. Not because I care about gossip, but because I care about you. I want everyone to know how much I respect you, how much you mean to me. I want to marry you, Martha, but I want to give you time to be sure. Marry, the word sent a thrill through her. I do not need much time. Give me until Christmas, Cole said. Let me court you proper. Take you to town socials, maybe even to Helena for a weekend if we can spare the time. Let me show you how a man should treat a woman he loves. Martha felt tears sting her eyes, but these were happy tears. All right, until Christmas. The next 2 months were the happiest of Martha's life. Cole courted her with old-fashioned chivalry and modern tenderness. He brought her wildflowers from the range, taught her to ride better so they could explore the ranch together, and sat with her in the evenings reading aloud from books he ordered from Helena. They went to a town dance in October where Cole proudly introduced her to everyone as his intended, though they had not yet officially announced an engagement. Martha bloomed under his attention. She had always been pretty in a quiet way, but now her eyes sparkled, her cheeks glowed with health, and her smile came easily. She gained back the weight she had lost on the trail, and her new dresses fit her curves properly. More importantly, the haunted look that had shadowed her eyes when she first arrived gradually faded, replaced by genuine happiness. They talked about everything during those golden autumn days. Cole told her about his childhood in Virginia, about losing his parents to fever when he was 16, about fighting in the war and the horrors he had seen. Martha shared more about her lonely childhood, about her dreams of having a real family, a real home. I want children, she told him one evening in November as they sat before the fireplace, her head resting on his shoulder. I know that might seem forward, but I think you should know. I want a house full of children, noise and laughter and chaos. Cole kissed the top of her head. I want that too. I want sons to teach ranching, daughters to spoil rotten. I want this house full of life. Then we want the same things. We want each other, Cole said. Everything else will follow. Thanksgiving came and Martha cooked a feast for Cole and the ranch hands. They crammed around the table in the main house, and Martha felt overwhelmed with gratitude as she looked around at these good men who had become her friends. Pete made a toast to her, thanking her for bringing warmth and good cooking back to the ranch, and all the men cheered. After the hands had returned to the bunkhouse, Cole helped Martha clean up. They worked side by side in comfortable silence, and then he took her hand and led her to the main room where a fire crackled in the hearth. I know I said Christmas, Cole began, and Martha's heart started to pound. But I cannot wait any longer. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. This was my mother's ring. It is the only thing I have left of her. I had it sized for you in town last week. He dropped to one knee, and Martha pressed her hand to her mouth, tears already streaming down her face. Martha Calloway, you rode into my life when I did not even know I was lonely. You brought light and warmth and love into this house and into my heart. I love you more than I thought it was possible to love someone. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife and my partner and the mother of my children? Yes, Martha sobbed. Yes, yes, yes. Cole slipped the ring onto her finger, a delicate gold band with a small sapphire, and then he stood and swept her into his arms. They kissed with the passion of two people who no longer had to hold back, and when they finally broke apart, both were laughing and crying at once. When? Martha asked breathlessly. When can we get married? As soon as you want. Tomorrow if you like, though I would prefer to give you time to plan something nice. I do not need anything fancy, I just need you. Martha looked at the ring on her finger, catching the firelight. But maybe after Christmas. That gives me time to make a nice dress and we can have a celebration with the ranch hands and people from town. After Christmas then, Cole agreed. But Martha, I want you to know that I consider you my wife already in my heart. This is just making it official. They set the date for the first week of January 1879, and the next few weeks passed in a flurry of preparations. Martha made herself a dress from beautiful blue wool cloth that Cole bought her in Helena when they made a special trip to the territorial capital. The city amazed her with its grand buildings and bustling streets, but she was happy to return to the ranch, to the quiet and peace of their home. Cole was increasingly affectionate, stealing kisses when the ranch hands were not around, holding her hand whenever they were alone. But he never pushed for more, respecting the boundaries of their unmarried state even as the tension between them grew. "I am trying to be a gentleman," he told her one evening when a kiss had turned heated and they had been forced to pull apart, both breathing hard. "But Lord, you make it difficult, woman." "Good," Martha said, feeling bold. "I would hate to think I was the only one suffering." He laughed and pulled her close again, but kept the embrace chaste. "Just a few more weeks. I can manage a few more weeks." Christmas arrived with a light snowfall that transformed the ranch into a winter wonderland. Martha had made gifts for everyone, knitting scarves and hats for the ranch hands and sewing Cole a new shirt from fabric she had carefully chosen in town. Cole gave her pearl earrings that had belonged to his mother and a beautiful leather-bound journal. "For your thoughts," he said, "and maybe someday for our children to read so they can know their mother's story." Martha held the journal to her chest, overcome with emotion. "It is perfect." "You are perfect." "Far from it," Cole said, pulling her close, "but I will spend the rest of my life trying to be the man you deserve." The wedding took place on a crisp January morning with blue sky and fresh snow on the ground. The circuit preacher had made his way to Silver Creek, and the ceremony was held in the small church at the edge of town. Martha wore her blue dress with her pearl earrings, and she had never felt more beautiful. Cole wore a new black suit, and when he saw her walking down the aisle, his eyes filled with tears. The church was packed with ranch hands, townspeople, and new friends Martha had made over the past months. Mrs. Henderson wept openly, and even crusty old Pete had to wipe his eyes. When the preacher pronounced them man and wife and Cole kissed her, the congregation erupted in cheers. They held a reception at the Silver Creek Hotel, with food and music and dancing. Cole waltzed Martha around the room, holding her close, and she felt like she was floating. "Happy, Mrs. Brennan." He murmured in her ear, "Happier than I ever imagined possible, Mr. Brennan." They left the reception early, amid much teasing and good-natured ribbing from the ranch hands. Cole drove them back to the ranch in a wagon decorated with ribbons and tin cans, and when they arrived home, he scooped Martha up and carried her over the threshold. "Welcome home, wife," he said, setting her down gently in the main room. "I have been home for months," Martha said, reaching up to touch his face. "But now it is official." That night, Cole made love to her with tenderness and passion, and Martha discovered a depth of feeling she had never known existed. John had been a kind but perfunctory lover, and she had thought that was simply how marriage was. But with Cole, it was different. He took his time, worshipping her body with his hands and mouth, bringing her to heights of pleasure she had not known were possible. And when they finally came together, moving as one, Martha felt complete in a way she never had before. Afterward, they lay tangled together in Cole's large bed, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," Cole said, his hand stroking her hair. "More than words can say. You are my heart, Martha, my home, my everything." The months that followed were filled with hard work and deep contentment. Martha threw herself into making the ranch a true home, planting a garden in the spring, sewing curtains for all the windows, and establishing a rhythm to their days. Cole continued to expand the ranch, buying more cattle and horses, and Martha proved to be an asset in unexpected ways. She had a good head for numbers and began helping with the ranch accounts, catching several errors that had cost them money. "You should be my partner in truth," Cole told her one evening as they pored over the ledgers together. "Half of this ranch should be in your name. Cole, you built this long before I arrived, and it has thrived since you came. You work as hard as any ranch hand, Martha. You deserve to own part of what you are building." He pulled out a document he had drawn up with a lawyer in Helena. "I had papers made. Half the ranch is yours, legal and binding. Martha stared at the papers, tears blurring her vision. John's family had taken everything from her, had made sure she had no claim to anything, and here was Cole freely giving her half of everything he had worked for. "Why?" she whispered. "Because we are partners," Cole said simply. "In life, in love, in work. Everything I have is yours, Martha. It always will be." She signed the papers with a trembling hand, and Cole witnessed the signature. Then he pulled her into his arms and held her while she cried tears of gratitude and love. That summer, Martha discovered she was pregnant. She had suspected for a few weeks, but she waited until she was sure before telling Cole. She chose a moment when they were alone, sitting on the porch after supper, watching the sun set. "Cole, I have something to tell you." He looked at her, concern flashing across his face. "What is it? Are you all right?" "I am fine, better than fine." She took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "We are going to have a baby." Cole's eyes widened, and then his face split into the biggest smile she had ever seen. "A baby, truly, truly. I think sometime in February." He let out a whoop of joy and pulled her into his arms, spinning her around. "We are going to be parents. Lord, Martha, I am going to be a father." "You are going to be a wonderful father," Martha said, laughing at his exuberance. Cole set her down carefully, suddenly treating her like she was made of glass. "You need to rest more. Let me hire someone to help with the heavy work. You should not be lifting and carrying in your condition." "Cole, I am pregnant, not ill." Women have been having babies while working for thousands of years. But he insisted on hiring a young woman from town, a sweet girl named Sally who came 3 days a week to help with the heavier chores. Martha appreciated the help more than she let on, especially as her pregnancy progressed and she grew tired more easily. Cole was attentive to the point of being comical. He fussed over her constantly, making sure she was eating enough, resting enough, not working too hard. He read every book on pregnancy and childbirth he could find, and peppered the doctor in town with questions during their monthly visits. "You are worse than an old hen," Martha teased him one evening as he insisted on propping her feet up and bringing her tea. "I am nervous," Cole admitted, sitting beside her and taking her hand. "I want everything to be perfect. I want you and the baby to be safe and healthy." "We will be," Martha assured him, squeezing his hand. "Women have babies every day. I am strong and healthy. Everything will be fine." But as her due date approached, Martha found her own anxiety growing. She had attended a few births at the orphanage as a teenager, helping the nuns, and she knew the reality of childbirth. It was painful and dangerous, and women died in labor more often than people liked to admit. She tried not to let Cole see her fear, but he knew her too well. One night in late January, as they lay in bed with his hand resting on her swollen belly, he broached the subject. "You are scared," he said quietly. "I can tell." There was no point in denying it. "A little." "Childbirth is dangerous, Cole. Things can go wrong." "Nothing is going to go wrong." His voice was fierce. "I have already arranged for Dr. Brennan to come stay at the ranch a week before your due date, and Mrs. Henderson is coming too. She has delivered dozens of babies. You will have the best care possible. And if something does go wrong," Martha's voice was small, "promise me you will choose the baby. If it comes down to a choice, save the baby." "No," Cole's voice was hard. "I will not make that promise because I am not going to lose you. You are going to come through this fine, and so is our baby, and we are going to raise a house full of children together. That is what is going to happen." His certainty soothed something in Martha's heart. She chose to believe him, to trust in his faith even when her own wavered. The baby came on a cold February morning, 2 weeks before the doctor was scheduled to arrive. Martha woke with pains in the early hours, and by the time the sun rose, the contractions were coming fast and hard. Cole sent Red racing to town for the doctor and Mrs. Henderson while he stayed with Martha, holding her hand and trying to hide his terror. "It is too soon," he kept saying. "The doctor is not here yet." "Babies come when they are ready," Martha panted between contractions. "This one is not waiting for anyone." Pete's wife, Mary, who lived in a small cabin on the ranch with Pete, came to help. She had raised 6 children of her own and had a calming presence. She boiled water, gathered clean linens, and checked Martha's progress. "This baby is coming fast," she announced. "First babies usually take longer, but I guess yours is in a hurry." Cole looked like he might faint, but he stayed at Martha's side, letting her squeeze his hand hard enough to bruise. The labor was intense and painful, but shorter than Martha had feared, just as Dr. Brennan and Mrs. Henderson arrived, their wagon skidding to a stop outside. Martha gave one final push and their baby entered the world with a lusty cry. "It is a boy," Mary announced, holding up the squalling infant. "A healthy boy." Cole laughed and cried at the same time, kissing Martha's sweaty forehead over and over. "You did it. You did it. He is perfect. You are perfect." The doctor checked both mother and baby thoroughly and pronounced them both healthy. Mrs. Henderson helped clean the baby and wrap him in a soft blanket, then placed him in Martha's arms. Martha looked down at her son's red, wrinkled face and felt her heart expand with a love so fierce it almost hurt. He had a shock of dark hair like Cole's and was waving tiny fists in the air, still crying indignantly at his rude entrance into the world. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "I am your mama." Cole sat on the edge of the bed, his arm around Martha, staring at their son in wonder. "He is real." "I mean, I knew he was real, but now he is here. We made him." "What should we name him?" Martha asked. They had discussed names for months but had never quite settled on one. Now, looking at their baby, Cole said, "What about Thomas? It was my father's name. Thomas Cole Brennan." "Tommy," Martha said, trying it out. "I like it. Tommy Brennan." Their son chose that moment to stop crying and open his eyes, looking up at his parents with a solemn, unfocused gaze. Cole reached out one finger and Tommy immediately grasped it with surprising strength. "He is strong," Cole said, his voice full of pride. "Look at that grip." The ranch hands came to the house throughout the day, bringing gifts and congratulations. Each man looked at the baby with soft eyes and offered awkward but sincere compliments. Pete declared that Tommy would be running the ranch in no time, and Red said he looked like a future champion rider. Over the following weeks, Martha and Cole adjusted to life with a newborn. Tommy was a good baby overall, though he had his fussy moments. Martha was exhausted and sore, but every time she looked at her son, she felt overwhelming gratitude. Cole was a devoted father, getting up with her for nighttime feedings, changing diapers without complaint, and spending hours just holding his son and talking to him. "Do you think he understands me?" Cole asked one evening as he sat in the rocking chair by the fire, Tommy nestled against his chest. "Probably not," Martha said, smiling at the picture they made. "But it does not matter. He knows your voice. He knows he is loved." "He is definitely loved," Cole said. "More than I knew it was possible to love someone, and that is saying something because I love you more than life." The seasons turned, and Tommy grew. He was a cheerful baby who smiled early and often, bringing joy to everyone at the ranch. By the time he was 6 months old, he was babbling and reaching for everything, curious about the world around him. Martha had never been happier. She had a home, a partner who loved and respected her, a beautiful son, and a purpose. Sometimes she thought about that desperate woman who had ridden into Silver Creek with $2 and nowhere to go, and she could hardly believe that was her. That woman had been broken and hopeless. The woman she was now was strong, loved, and full of hope for the future. One evening in October, as they celebrated Tommy's first birthday with a simple cake, and the ranch hands gathered around to spoil him with wooden toys they had carved, Martha stood back and watched her family with tears in her eyes. Cole came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her back against his chest. "Happy tears, the happiest," Martha said, leaning into him. "I was just thinking about how different my life is now compared to a year ago, different good or different bad." "Different wonderful." She turned in his arms to face him. "You saved me, Cole. That day you offered me work, you saved my life." "No," Cole said, cupping her face in his hands. "You saved mine. I did not know how empty my life was until you filled it. You made this house a home. You made me whole." They kissed, soft and sweet, and Tommy chose that moment to toddle over on his chubby legs, grabbing Cole's pants and demanding attention. Cole laughed and scooped him up, and Martha wrapped her arms around both of them. "My boys," she said. "Our family," Cole corrected. And it is just getting started. He was right. Over the next few years, their family grew. Martha gave birth to a daughter, Emma, in 1880, and then another son, James, in 1882. The house was full of noise and laughter and chaos, just as Martha had dreamed. Cole expanded the ranch further, and with Martha's help managing the business side, they became one of the most successful operations in the territory. But success was not what mattered most to Martha. What mattered was the way Cole still kissed her goodbye every morning and hello every evening. The way he played with their children, patient and loving even when he was tired from a long day. The way he looked at her across the dinner table, his eyes still full of love and desire after years of marriage. What mattered was the community they had built, the friends they had made, the life they had created together. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Cole took Martha to the spot where they had first kissed on the porch, now enclosed in a screened addition he had built. The children were asleep, watched by Mary, and the night was quiet and peaceful. "5 years ago, I married the most incredible woman I had ever met," Cole said, taking Martha's hands in his. "And every year since, I have fallen more in love with you. You are my partner, my best friend, the mother of my children, and the love of my life." "I love you too," Martha said, tears streaming down her face. "You gave me a home when I had nowhere to go. You gave me love when I thought I would never feel it again. You gave me a family and a future." "We gave each other those things," Cole said. "That is what partnership means." They stood together under the stars, holding each other close, and Martha thought about that scared, desperate widow who had ridden into town with $2. She thought about the kind cowboy who had offered her work and doubled her wages, giving her a chance when she had nothing. She thought about how one act of kindness could change everything, how love could grow in the most unexpected places, how hope could bloom even in the hardest circumstances. And she thanked God for every moment that had led her to this place, to this man, to this life. Years continued to pass in happiness and prosperity. Tommy grew into a strong young man who loved working the ranch with his father. Emma was bright and spirited, keeping everyone on their toes. James was the baby, sweet and gentle, with a way with animals that amazed everyone. Cole's hair gained streaks of gray at the temples, and Martha found laugh lines around her eyes when she looked in the mirror. But they still held hands like newlyweds, still stole kisses when the children were not looking, still talked late into the night about their dreams and plans. The ranch became known throughout Montana Territory as one of the finest operations, but also as a place where people in need could find help. Cole and Martha never forgot what it was like to have nothing, and they made sure to extend the same kindness that had been shown to them. They hired down-on-their-luck drifters, gave second chances to men with checkered pasts, and provided food and shelter to families passing through. "We are paying it forward," Cole explained to Tommy one day when the boy asked why they helped so many people. "Your mother came to me with nothing, and I gave her a chance. That chance brought me more happiness than I ever imagined. You never know when helping someone might change both your lives." On their 10th anniversary, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset with their children playing in the yard, Martha reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her here. She thought about John, her first husband, and felt only gratitude for the kind man who had shown her what marriage could be, even if it had not been passionate love. She thought about his family's cruelty and realized she was grateful for that too, because it had pushed her west toward her destiny. "What are you thinking about?" Cole asked, reaching over to take her hand. "About how everything had to happen exactly as it did to bring me here," Martha said. "All the good and all the bad, it was all necessary." "I am grateful for every moment that led you to me," Cole said. "Even the painful ones, because they made you the strong, incredible woman I love." Their children grew and eventually began families of their own. Tommy married a local girl and built a house on the far edge of the ranch, taking over more of the daily operations. Emma married a doctor and moved to Helena but visited often. James, true to his gentle nature, became a veterinarian and opened a practice in Silver Creek. Cole and Martha became grandparents, delighting in spoiling their grandchildren the way they had once spoiled their own children. They slowed down a bit, letting Tommy handle more of the ranch work, but they never lost their joy in each other. On their 25th anniversary, the whole family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. Children and grandchildren filled the house that Martha had first seen as an exhausted widow with nowhere to go. Looking around at all the love and life they had created, Martha felt her heart overflow. That night, lying in bed with Cole's arms around her, she whispered, "Did you ever imagine our lives would turn out like this?" "I imagined loving you," Cole said. "The rest is just bonus." "I rode into town with $2 and a prayer," Martha mused, "and you changed my life." "You changed mine," Cole insisted. "We changed each other's lives. That is what love does." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms the way they had almost every night for 25 years. Outside, the Montana wind whispered through the pines, and the stars shone bright over the ranch they had built together. Martha's last conscious thought before sleep claimed her was one of perfect contentment. She had found her home, her heart, her purpose. She had found everything she had been searching for in the kind blue eyes of a cowboy who had been willing to take a chance on a desperate widow. And she had found not just survival, but a love that would last all the days of her life and beyond. The years continued to roll by with the changing seasons, and Cole and Martha grew old together on their beloved ranch. They celebrated 30 years of marriage, then 35, then 40. Their children thrived, their grandchildren grew, and eventually great-grandchildren began to appear. The ranch had become a legacy, passed down through generations, a testament to what could be built with hard work, love, and partnership. Tommy ran the operation now with his own sons helping, but Cole still went out most mornings to check on the horses, and Martha still kept a garden that was the envy of the territory. At 65, Cole's hair had gone completely silver, and he moved a bit slower than he once had. Martha's blonde hair had faded to white, and her hands were gnarled with arthritis. But when they looked at each other, they still saw the young people who had fallen in love on a porch under the stars. On a warm spring day in 1918, as they sat together on that same porch where so much of their love story had unfolded, Martha turned to Cole with a smile. "You remember the day we met?" she asked. "Every detail," Cole said. "You looked exhausted and beautiful and determined all at once. I knew right then that you were something special. You offered me work and doubled my wages when you had no reason to trust me. Best decision I ever made." Cole lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "You are still the best decision I ever made. I love you, Cole Brennan. I have loved you for 40 years, and I will love you for whatever time we have left. And I love you, Martha Brennan. You are my heart, my home, my everything, always." They sat in comfortable silence, hands clasped, watching the sun set over the land they had worked and loved and built into something enduring. Their great-grandchildren's laughter drifted from the yard, and somewhere in the distance, cattle lowed. It was an ordinary evening on the ranch, and it was perfect. Martha thought again of that desperate widow who had ridden into Silver Creek with $2 and nowhere to turn. She thought of the cowboy who had seen past her exhaustion and desperation to the strong woman beneath. She thought of all the moments, big and small, that had woven together to create this beautiful life. And she smiled, content in the knowledge that their love story was one for the ages. A story of kindness and second chances, of hard work and partnership, of a love that had not only endured but had flourished, creating a legacy that would live on long after they were gone. The sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, and Martha Brennan, who had once been Martha Calloway, widow and wanderer, knew that she was exactly where she belonged. She was home.